When the cameras stopped rolling, these sitcom stars got into serious legal trouble. Some of them have managed to clean up their acts, while others remain firmly behind bars. After joining the cast of Full House in 1988 for the show's second season, Lori Loughlin wound up staying on permanently as Becky Donaldson, the love interest and eventual wife of Uncle Jesse. She reprised the role a few decades later on the Netflix reboot Fuller House, but then she was dropped from the sequel series after it emerged that she was involved in a large criminal enterprise. In 2019, the United States Department of Justice made arrests in a long-simmering operation called Operation Varsity Blues. Dozens of people allegedly paid heavy sums to fixers to ensure that their children were admitted to selective universities, such as Stanford, Yale, and Southern California. One of the most famous names on the arrest logs was Loughlin. She and her husband reportedly provided $500,000 to operatives to make sure that their daughters were admitted to Southern Cal by making it seem that they were crew team recruits, when in fact they didn't participate in the sport. In 2020, Loughlin entered a guilty plea for 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire and mail fraud and was convicted and sentenced to 2 months in prison. She served her time at the Federal Correctional Institution in Dublin, California. After her time behind bars, she managed to make comedy out of her life of crime by guest starring as herself on an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
A handicap sticker?
It's fantastic. I can park anywhere.
How'd you get that?
Oh, you know.
After landing her breakthrough role on the short-lived but acclaimed Sports Night in 1998, Felicity Huffman became a TV superstar in the 2000s. Beginning in 2004, she played overwhelmed mother of 4 Lynette Scavo on ABC's soapy comedy drama Desperate Housewives, and she won an Emmy for her performance in 2005. The following year, she was Oscar-nominated for Transamerica, but then her career was derailed after she was implicated in a federal investigation. Like Lori Loughlin, Huffman was among the 50 individuals tied to Operation Varsity Blues. She ultimately confessed to making a payment of $15,000 to a college admissions test administrator to provide her daughter extra time to finish. She was also reportedly planning on trying to outright fix another daughter's SAT exam answers. She ended up entering a guilty plea to 1 count of conspiracy to commit mail fraud and honest services mail fraud, which resulted in a conviction. Huffman's sentence included a $30,000 fine, 250 hours of community service, and a 2-week prison stay. She completed her prison term at the Federal Correctional Institution in Dublin, California in late 2019.
I want to use my experience and what I've gone through and the pain to bring something good.
Tim Allen starred on one of the biggest sitcoms of the 1990s, Home Improvement, as an incompetent father, husband, and the host of his own DIY TV show. Before his television career, Allen was a stand-up comedian, and before that, he made his money by trafficking drugs. In 1978, authorities arrested a 23-year-old Allen at the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport in Michigan for possession of over 650 grams of cocaine. He then faced a lengthy prison sentence of up to life in prison. However, he instead agreed to cooperate with the prosecution as he provided the names of higher-ups in the trafficking organization. He entered a guilty plea and received a reduced sentence of 3 to 7 years. After spending 2 years and 4 months at the Federal Correctional Institution in Sandstone, Minnesota, Allen was released on parole in the summer of 1981. Charles S. Dutton was one of the best-known stage actors of the 1980s, and then in 1991 he moved to the small screen to headline Rock, a gritty Fox sitcom about a gruff Baltimore garbage man feuding with his family. The show embraced its star's background and went fully theatrical in the middle of its run when it became the first sitcom in decades to be broadcast live. Dutton first became interested in theater in 1972 when a friend sent him a play script to read while he was in prison. He produced the work with fellow inmates, and after getting out on parole in 1976, he studied at the Yale School of Drama. Dutton spent a total of about a decade in some type of prison, first in a juvenile reform school, and then at the Maryland State Penitentiary. The main charge on record was for manslaughter, as he gotten into a fight with a knife-wielding man and endured 7 stab wounds. That charge brought with it 18 months in prison, but that wasn't the last of Dutton's convictions, as he landed behind bars again for possession of a deadly weapon. Kelsey Grammer is virtually synonymous with the character of Dr. Frasier Crane. He originated the parts of the stuffy psychiatrist on Cheers before being spun off into his own sitcom in 1993, and then returning to play the role on a Frasier reboot beginning in 2023. But despite his legendary TV stardom, Grammer was also experiencing alcohol and substance abuse issues that led to serious legal difficulties. In 1987, he was arrested for driving while intoxicated. He entered a no-contest plea and avoided incarceration by agreeing to participate in a rehab program. He didn't report to it, though, leading a California judge to issue a new arrest warrant in 1990. This time, Grammer was sentenced to 10 days of community service by picking up garbage on a highway, as well as 30 days in jail, though he was released after just 14 due to overcrowding. On the same day, he went before another court for a different case. For failing to complete court-ordered rehab after he was arrested and charged with possession of cocaine, he received a sentence of 90 days of house arrest.
What about you, Kelsey? Any
Forgive
words?
yourself.
Running from 1978 to 1986, Different Strokes was a massive hit that made stars out of its young cast, including Todd Bridges, who played Willis Jackson, a kid from Harlem adjusting to his new life on Tony Park Avenue. After Different Strokes ended, Bridges struggled to find work and felt increasingly despondent over personal and professional issues. He had also begun using drugs while the show was still on the air. In 1989, following a 6-week period of daily heavy cocaine use, Bridges was arrested and tried for shooting a drug dealer 8 times. A jury ultimately acquitted him of attempted murder, which carried a maximum sentence of 7 years in prison. Instead, he spent a mere 9 months incarcerated while awaiting his trial.
And I realized that something had to change.
That 70s show brought a real-life 70s icon on board when Tommy Chong joined the cast in 1999. He played Leo, a forgetful and spaced-out old hippie. In other words, he was basically playing himself, or at least the version of himself that was one half of the comedy duo Cheech and Chong. In real life, Chong capitalized on his reputation by forming Nice Dreams Enterprises, which sold glass pipes and other items implicitly designed for consuming marijuana. That got him in the crosshairs of the Drug Enforcement Administration, which arrested more than 50 people in a 2003 sting called Operation Pipe Dreams.
Mr. Chong, do you have any marijuana in the house? And I said, yeah.
After a year of investigation, Chong was arrested and entered a guilty plea. He was then sentenced to 9 months in federal prison, which he ultimately found wasn't that terrible an experience. As he revealed on the It Happened in Hollywood podcast, you get a computer, you get a nice comfortable cubicle, you're in there with nice intelligent people. Danny Masterson made quite the impression on that 70s show viewers as sarcastic rebel Stephen Hyde. While some of his co-stars eventually left, he stayed on for the show's entire 8-season run. He and Ashton Kutcher would later reunite on the Netflix sitcom The Ranch beginning in 2016. But Masterson was eventually dropped from the cast of that show following an investigation into allegations that multiple women brought against him. In 2020, Los Angeles police arrested Masterson and booked him on 3 counts of rape. He was released after a $3.3 million bail payment. The first time he was prosecuted, the proceedings ended in a mistrial. But then, in a new hearing in May 2023, a jury found him guilty of 2 rape charges. Later that year, he was sentenced to a term of 30 years to life. As of 2024, he's incarcerated at the California Men's Colony Prison in San Luis Obispo, California. In the 2010s, Chris Tavarez had recurring parts on 2 popular cable sitcoms, Tyler Perry's TBS show Meet the Browns and the Disney Channel series Casey Undercover. On the latter, he played Darian, the love interest of a teenage spy played by Zendaya. Off-screen, though, his life was a little rockier. In 2019, he was arrested in the Los Angeles area following a heated argument with his domestic partner that escalated into physical violence. Tavarez allegedly aggressively pushed his girlfriend with such force that she struck her head and was diagnosed with a concussion. Booked on a felony charge of domestic violence in November 2019, he was later convicted and sentenced to alcohol rehab, a year of domestic violence awareness courses, and 5 years of probation to be served following a 300-day jail sentence. Dustin Diamond passed away in February 2021 at age 44 from an aggressive form of cancer, tragically bringing to end a life that began with child stardom and then was filled with turmoil and legal problems. Diamond's acting career consisted almost entirely of playing goofy nerd Samuel Screech Powers on Saved by the Bell and its various spin-offs. His personal life, meanwhile, was filled with struggle.
I felt lost.
On Christmas night 2014, Diamond got into a violent altercation at a bar in Port Washington, Wisconsin, stabbing a man with a folding knife blade and then fleeing the scene of the crime with his fiancée. The victim recovered from a wound to his right underarm. In June of the following year, Diamond was found guilty of misdemeanor counts of disorderly conduct and carrying a concealed weapon. His sentence included 15 months probation and 4 months in jail. He was granted parole after 3 months served, though he returned to jail briefly in May 2016 for violating the terms of his probation. Was pretty much the biggest TV star in America in the 1980s thanks to The Cosby Show, which aired on NBC from 1984 to 1992. But off-screen, the man known as America's Dad was allegedly engaging in some abominable behavior for decades. A total of 60 women have accused Cosby of various acts of sexual assault from the 1960s until the mid-2000s, although he has generally claimed that these encounters were consensual. Statute of limitations laws have precluded Cosby being tried for most of these cases, but not all of them. Andrea Constand, who was working for the Temple University women's basketball team at the time of her encounter with Cosby, alleged that he invited her to his home in 2004, where he drugged and then sexually assaulted her. The trial ended in a conviction in 2018, with the actor found guilty on 3 charges of aggravated indecent assault. Set to serve as many as 10 years, Cosby ultimately spent only 3 years at a prison in Pennsylvania before he was released in 2021. The state Supreme Court vacated the conviction because it believed that he hadn't received a fair trial. Stoney Westmoreland had a variety of TV guest parts to his name in the 90s and early 2000s before eventually landing his best-known and longest-lasting role in 2017 as Ham, grandfather to the title character on Disney Channel's coming-of-age series Andy Mack. But then his involvement in that show ended in 2018 following an arrest in Salt Lake City. Police successfully captured Westmoreland via a sting operation. He believed that he was meeting up with a 13-year-old, but it turned out that it was actually an undercover law enforcement official. Released from jail in 2019, Westmoreland headed back behind bars for a few days in January 2020 after violating his parole, as he ignored a deadline to turn over his digital devices for inspection of criminal activity, and authorities weren't able to access a room in his house. By 2022, he was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE 4673.